My name is Amanda, and I'm 28 years old. I've been married for 2 years to my husband Tom, a colleague from university who is now a corporate employee. Since graduating from university, I've chosen not to seek traditional employment and instead make a living through stock investment and foreign exchange trading. Despite living comfortably this way, my parents frequently urge me to find a decent job. The one who understands my current lifestyle the most is Tom. He's always on my side. We've been together since our university days. Being someone who isn't good at socializing, Tom has always been the one I could share my true feelings with. I have parents and a younger sister, but they seem to keep their distance, labeling me as the odd one out. As a result, we don't see each other as often as we used to. Tom's family consists of his parents and his older brother Jeff. When we visited his family to announce our marriage, they asked a lot of questions about my job. Each time, Tom would stand up for me. Amanda is doing what she loves for a living, and that's all that matters. Especially Jeff, who persistently inquired about my job, got me so annoyed that I gave him an offhand response. I'm a part-timer. Hearing this, Jeff chuckled arrogantly and responded, You should have just said that from the start. Plenty of college graduates can't find stable jobs these days. His condescending attitude was irritating, but I didn't let it bother me since I was not marrying him. Even though Tom kept apologizing, having him by my side was all that mattered to me. Jeff, who constantly belittled me, apparently holds an associate professor position at a university. I pity the students who have to learn from such a teacher. Jeff is now getting married, and Tom and I have been invited to the wedding. The bride-to-be is the daughter of the president of the university where Jeff works. There were many guests invited to the wedding. Marrying the president's daughter certainly guarantees a secure future. Jeff, all puffed up, saw me and began to mock me again. It's embarrassing to have a part-timer as a sister-in-law, so your name isn't listed in the directory. I didn't understand what he was talking about, but when I checked the wedding directory, my name was the only one left blank. Tom was about to confront Jeff, but I told him not to worry about it since I didn't care about such things. I don't mind, so don't start a fight over it. Hearing my words, Jeff smirked and retorted, That's right, a part-timer should keep a low profile. Don't ruin this celebration. Then he even told us not to serve drinks to the other guests at the wedding. If you go around serving drinks and people ask what your job is, it'd be troublesome if you answer a part-timer. Just sit quietly. He said triumphantly, leaving us behind, but Tom was still furious. I'm sorry. My brother has been incredibly rude. My husband Tom apologized with a near-tears expression. Feeling guilty, I unexpectedly found myself apologizing too. I should be the one saying sorry. I didn't mean for you to be upset because of me. Seeing me apologize, Tom finally managed to smile. At the wedding that day, neither of us had the heart to celebrate Jeff and his wife. As Jeff had suggested, we decided to simply enjoy the delicious food. As expected from a wedding of the daughter of a university president, the food was extravagant and we fully enjoyed it. The gifts were heavy, raising our expectations of something luxurious. But when we opened the box at home, we were stunned. Inside was a bowl with a portrait of Jeff and his wife. Even Tom, being the younger brother, was exasperated. He sighed and said, This is the last thing we need. I don't want to see my brother's face, but we can't just throw it away. And it's not something we can use. But I thought of a way to use it immediately. It was the perfect size and depth for our cat's dish. Can we use it for the cat's food? Would that be disrespectful to your brother? Tom replied, laughing. It's perfect for the cat's food. The idea of my brother and his wife being licked by the cat every day is refreshing. With Tom's approval, the gift bowl became our cat's dish from then on. A month later, I had to visit the university a few times where Jeff worked. I hated running into Jeff, who had started working there after marrying the president's daughter, but I figured I'd be safe as the campus was large, and I had to visit a different department from where he worked. However, I bumped into Jeff right away. Seeing me, Jeff looked surprised. I quickly averted my eyes and pretended not to see him, but Jeff approached me and started yelling, Why the hell are you here? I'm calling the police for trespassing. Jeff's loud voice drew a crowd of students. In front of them, he began mocking me. What's a deadbeat like you doing here? Did you come to eat cheap lunch at the cafeteria? Being shy, I fell silent. But that seemed to amuse Jeff even more, and he started telling the surrounding students, "Look closely, students. This woman is a part-timer, even after graduating from college. If you don't study hard, you'll end up like this." I could see the students giggling, and I felt like crying. Then a voice interrupted Jeff's rant from behind. Turning towards the voice, I saw a familiar professor and felt relieved. "What on earth is happening? She's my invited guest." My brother-in-law Jeff was momentarily taken aback by the words, but he quickly retorted, "Isn't there some kind of mistake? This girl is just a part-timer." Another professor who arrived late and knew me corrected Jeff. "She is not a part-timer. She's a research collaborator in our economics department." Regardless of what the other professor said, Jeff seemed unconvinced. Ever since marrying the president's daughter, he's been condescending even to the older professors. The professor who invited me, thinking it was pointless to argue with Jeff, took my hand and led me away from the scene. As I left, the students also dispersed, but Jeff didn't seem amused. He seemed to follow me, barging into the room I had been led into. Despite the presence of many senior professors in the room, Jeff continued to ridicule me with his words. "What's this about? She's a part-timer, right? Dumb-looking girl. Don't wander around the university." Upon hearing his offensive words, the senior professors in the room began to shudder. In a panic, one of the senior professors ushered Jeff out of the room, but I could hear him whispering to Tom, "Your career is over, Jeff." Jeff didn't seem to care about what was said. After all, with the president in his corner, he had no fear. But at some point, the president had entered the room I was in. The president immediately apologized to me. "I am deeply sorry. Our associate professor has spoken out of line. Allow me to apologize on his behalf." The other professors also apologized to me, to which I responded that I didn't mind. In reality, I was filled with rage almost to my breaking point, but I displayed mature composure. I had not planned to meet with the president that day, but he seemed to have come unexpectedly. I was conducting research with the professors of the economics department at this university on financial engineering. When I say research, I mean we're verifying whether or not the theory I use in my stock and Forex investment operations is correct. Since my university days, I've been conducting financial transactions based on my unique theory, and I've been exchanging opinions with a professor I met on social media. As the professor noticed my good investment performance and began to verify it with me, I started to be invited to the university as a research collaborator. The university had repeatedly suggested I work as a lecturer, but as I'm not comfortable speaking in front of others, the idea was impossible for me. Since participating in the research also benefits me, I visited the university a few times a month to confirm the results, but I didn't realize it was the same university where Jeff works until he got married. When I looked at the guest list at the wedding and recognized a name, it turned out that the president of this university was the bride's father. Although there were other university-related guests, it seemed that no one noticed me. My name had been removed from the list, and I had been told not to serve drinks, so I never left my seat. With a wedding of such scale, no one was expected to notice someone as unremarkable as me. The reason the president and professors were in a panic is because I'm a major donor to this university. Ever since I started conducting research with the university, my investment performance has improved significantly, and I have been donating a substantial amount of money each year. In addition, the theories I'm researching are also being provided to hedge funds and investors abroad, which seems to be bringing in a considerable amount of donations as well. As a private university, donations and sponsorship funds are crucial. To the university, which is earning a considerable amount of money from the research I am involved in, upsetting me would be a serious problem. If I got angry because of my brother-in-law Jeff's rude remarks, withdrew from the research, and even the donations ceased, it would greatly affect the university's operations. That day was no longer a situation to discuss investment theory. The president and the other professors were just apologized to me forever, so nothing was settled. As I was leaving, I spoke to the president. "Your sister-in-law, the associate professor earlier, is my brother-in-law Jeff. Did you know that?" At these words, the president and the professors were surprised, and it was clear that no one had noticed it before. I also tried to share my honest feelings. Jeff always makes fun of me, but I think his attitude is questionable as an educator. I must have been pretty angry at that time. In front of about 10 people, including the president, I spoke quite passionately, something I couldn't normally do due to nerves. Looking back on it, I feel embarrassed, but I was impressed with myself for doing something unexpected when anger builds up too much. After I left, it seems my brother-in-law Jeff's attitude became an issue within the university. He had been criticized for his arrogant attitude towards his superiors, even after marrying the president's daughter, and his reputation among students was quite bad. The fact that he became an associate professor in the first place seemed to be a special case because he was dating the president's daughter, and criticism was directed at the president as well. The president had been defending his sister-in-law, Jeff, for the sake of his beloved daughter, but he was in trouble if his position as president was taken away, as he also received criticism. Jeff, not thinking that the president, his biggest backer, was criticizing him too, became more and more arrogant. Jeff, who didn't know about this, made fun of me as usual when I showed up at the university again. "Back again, huh? A part-timer? Just because you're friendly with the economics professors doesn't mean you can get cocky." When I thought about the fact that a man who speaks such rude words is an associate professor, I started to think that this university was going down the drain. The president had such a man as his sister-in-law, and even if he acted arrogantly, he didn't scold him, so I started to think about stopping the joint research with this university. I didn't like being made fun of every time I came to the university, and I started to feel like it was a waste of time, so I thought about ending it while listening to Jeff's talk. Whether he noticed that I was absent-mindedly listening to a story, Jeff shouted even more. "Hey, are you even listening? Are you so stupid you can't even listen to other people's stories?" Then a louder voice from the president resonated. "Jeff, you're the fool." When the president appeared, even my overbearing brother-in-law Jeff became still as a statue. Seeing him like that, I couldn't help but burst into laughter. Realizing that I was laughing at him, Jeff glared at me, but was quickly silenced by the president's harsh words. "After today, you're no longer part of this university. Pack up and get out immediately." Jeff seemed to have a hard time comprehending what was said, his gaze fixed blankly on the president's face. Then suddenly, his tone grew casual. "Father-in-law, what's going on all of a sudden? Are you trying to surprise me?" In response, the president, his face crimson with rage, yelled again. "You have no right to call me your father-in-law. I want you to divorce my daughter as well." The sudden talk of divorce took me aback, but just then a young woman and a man in a suit appeared before us. Looking at the woman, I felt I had seen her somewhere before, and turning to Jeff, I saw he was visibly shocked. Seeing Jeff's surprised face, I recalled that this woman was Jeff's wife, but why she would come here was still a mystery. Jeff's wife, with a stern look on her face, began to speak slowly. "I suspected you were acting strange, so I had a lawyer investigate, and they managed to get these photos." As she spoke, the man in the suit pulled out several photos from a bag and showed them to Jeff. Peering at the photos from behind Jeff, I clearly saw him arm in arm with a woman I didn't recognize. Jeff seemed surprised, and I also let out a gasp of astonishment. I understood why the president had mentioned divorce, but I felt it was unnecessary to discuss it in the middle of the university, especially in front of me. Jeff's wife continued to address the flustered Jeff. "Let's divorce, just as Dad said. After all, you were just using him, weren't you? You never loved me." The unfolding drama had my heart racing, but seeing the tearful face of Jeff, who was about to cry, brought me joy. Moreover, when Jeff's wife said she would also demand the property division, Jeff began to apologize. "I won't cheat on you again. Please forgive me." Watching Jeff is in a panic was quite enjoyable, and I was almost tempted to take a picture to show my husband. Maybe the president called me here today to let me see Jeff suffer. Despite Jeff's pleas, his wife didn't change her mind and tell him she already hired a lawyer. I hadn't expected things to progress so quickly, and as I watched bewildered Jeff close, he turned his frustration on me. "What are you looking at? You're just a part-timer. It's none of your business. Get out of here." At this point, the president began to speak on my behalf. "You always yell part-timer at Amanda, but she's a skilled investor. She's doing joint research with our economics department and even gives generous donations. She's a much more valuable person than you ever will be." Finally, it seemed like Jeff began to believe the president's words as he silently looked up at me. The timing was just right. so I gave my brother-in-law Jeff a piece of my mind. I expect an apology from you too. Reluctantly, Jeff apologized to me. The President Bob must have intended for Jeff to apologize to me too, hence his orchestration of this whole event. Showing off evidence of his affair, weakening Jeff completely, then talking about me to further weaken him and compel an apology, that must have been the plan. Thanks to that, I felt quite refreshed, seeing Jeff apologizing to me. While Jeff looked down in despair, the lawyer was explaining the demand for the property division. Meanwhile, I bid Bob farewell, ready to leave. Bob requested my continued support for the university, but I asked for a rain check. I'd begun to distrust this university because of Jeff, and I had my own concerns to attend to. I promised to get back to him and left for the day. When I got home, I filled my husband Tom in on the Jeff incident that had taken place at the university. Tom was aware of my distaste for Jeff, and when I told him about Jeff apologizing his affair and looking down in despair, he wore a genuinely happy face. Then, looking somewhat frustrated, he said to me, "Damn, I wish I could have seen him in that state, but man, this feels great." He then continued, looking slightly angry. "Why didn't you take a picture?" As he feigned anger, we locked eyes and burst out laughing. I actually had another piece of good news to share with Tom. Guess what? It seems I'm pregnant. Hearing this, Tom was ecstatic, cheering as if he'd won a lottery. I'd been feeling unwell lately and had suspected as much. On my way home from the university, I dropped by the OBGYN and found out about the pregnancy. I felt a bit guilty for Bob, who had gone to such lengths to orchestrate Jeff's apology, but I decided to put my cooperation with the university on hold. Bob seemed disappointed, but he said he'd wait until I'd finished with child rearing, when I suggested reconsidering at that point. When I casually asked Bob about Jeff, he informed me that Jeff, who had officially divorced, was not only unemployed, but struggling to find a new job. Jeff was trying to sell himself to other universities, but his arrogance was well known, and no offers were coming in. Ultimately, Jeff's arrogance boomeranged back on him, and the comeback was even bigger than expected. Suddenly, I realized that the photos of the cheap gifts we used as cat dishes had disappeared. Whether it was because we had used cheap gifts or because they had divorced, the couple's photos had vanished as well.